Watch the Diaspora Voice every Friday from 7:30 p.m. on www.ktnkenya.tv.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Diaspora Voice, a KTN online program that focuses on critical issues affecting Kenyans living outside the country and suggests ways in which they can contribute towards a better Kenya away from home. My name is Sadiq Shaban. This week, the lecturers in Kenya called off the strike after cabinet yielded to their demands by releasing 7.8 billion Kenyan shillings. This amount will be implemented in two phases to meet outstanding university staff salary increments.
The two teachers' unions awoke to another morning of negotiations at the Ministry of Labour aimed at breaking the deadlock. They would emerge 4 hours later to announce that once again they had failed to reach an agreement.
This morning we met Kupet and the TSC, and I must say we've had a very good meeting, a very fruitful meeting. I see some light, out of all this.
The government so far has agreed to harmonize basic pay with those of other public servants, but they are still reluctant to address the issues of allowances. That is the reason for which we have given sufficient time for negotiations.
Both Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers and Kenya National Union of Teachers are seeking better remuneration for their members following a 1997 agreement, but higher allowances have proved a sticking point with the teachers' unions. The teachers also want their salaries harmonized with those of public servants who were granted a pay rise earlier this year, while the teachers were left out in the cold.
Some of these issues that are of major concern date back to 1997. They deal with the issues of allowances, issues of subsequent agreements that took place, subsequent legal notices that came in force. And therefore it becomes important for both sides to put their facts together and agree.
Members left the boardroom for what was meant to be a 2-hour break, during which both sides were expected to reconsider their positions. However, both parties would fail to return for the second session in the afternoon.
Harmonization in relation to commuter, house allowance, risk and responsibility allowances made the government to ask for more time to go and consult. And we were meant to meet immediately in the afternoon, but we did realize that they asked for more time so that they could consult.
It is now 6 o'clock, approximately 9.5 hours since negotiations between teachers and the government was set to kick off. And still there is no deal on the table, so that it appears that the country will be marking the end of its first week without a deal on the horizon. This even as the Salaries and Remuneration Commission asked the government to honour agreements made before 2013. It, however, urged teachers to lower their demands, as a 300 pay increment would be difficult to implement.
We want that an evaluation of the ability by the country to meet the demands of the striking workers.
Meanwhile, learning was paralysed in 31 public universities and colleges after lecturers joined in the strike. Orientation of first-year students who reported to various public universities on Monday was disrupted as the lecturers marched down streets across the country, chanting and carrying placards. They are seeking a 100% pay hike. University Academic Staff Union members in the University of Nairobi, the Jomo Kenyatta University of Advanced Technology, Kenyatta University and Moi University downed their tools almost simultaneously, with the university non-academic staff joining in solidarity with the lecturers.
Inaonekana lugha inayosikilizwa katika nchi hii ni ya migomo. Katika mwaka wa 2003 tuligoma, katika mwaka wa 2005 tuligoma, katika mwaka wa 2006 tuligoma. Migomo.
The lecturer strike now meaning the country's entire public education system has shut down until the government and the academic unions can find a satisfactory middle ground.
Well, as the world increasingly moves towards becoming a global village, more and more people are turning toward distance learning. You no longer have to be physically present at a school in order to study there. We are now joined by Beatrice Obocha, Kenyan, who is currently undergoing distance learning. Welcome, Beatrice Obocha, to this program. Now, not so many people are familiar with the process of distance learning. How did it start for you?
It depends on which university you are applying to do the distance learning with. I chose University of South Africa, that is UNISA. And they have a center here in Kenya. They have two. There's one in Inorero University and there's another one at KCA. I chose Inorero. So you go to the center and they assist you in the process with the courses that you're going to take, with the degree that you want to pursue, and the application process. So it's kind of easier than you doing it on your own directly with the university.
So once you registered, then how do you go through with your studies?
After the applications and paying school fees, they send you books. Most of them are tutorial letters and study guides. They have what we call prescribed books for each and every module. So they write for you which book to buy. So you see, when you're doing distance learning, you get the books, you study, then you go and sit for the exam in a class. But still, there are some things you submit online, like the submission of assignments. They're electronic. You submit what here we call CATs, continuous assessment tests. At UNISA, they are called assignments, which are compulsory. You have to do the assignments for you to qualify to do an exam. So you submit them online and they have these specific dates that you have to submit them. If you don't submit, you do not qualify for the exam.
And why did you elect distance learning over normal class studies?
At that time, I was in Nakuru and there was no university offering the course that I wanted to do. And also, I'm a journalist, so my work schedule is a bit complicated. Like sometimes when I'm supposed to go to class at 5, there's a function. So I wanted a flexible kind of studying program where I can mix, with my profession, family, and work life. And, it was easier for me because it's flexible. I study at my own time, but except for the exam period where you have to go to a class and really sit for the exam.
Well, what are some of the challenges that you're facing in this mode of learning?
Challenges is time management. You have to be very good in time management because here you study on your own. You don't have classes. You have assignments to do. You have books to read through and make your own notes. So time management is really, really key, and sometimes you find like you are swamped with other things and you tend to push it forward. And then you find you're caught up with time by the time you're sitting for your exams or assignment time. Another challenge is getting books. Some of the books, prescribed books, are not available in our bookshops here. You have to order them from South Africa. So sometimes it takes time before you order for a book and for you to get it. So, and another thing is that it's really not easy to get discussion groups here because you find like the person who's doing the same course as you, some of them are in other towns. So you end up not having a discussion group. If you want a discussion group, maybe you can only do an email to ask your lecturer a question or other students, but not really the discussion groups as we usually have them.
It surely must be having its own advantages then, Beatrice.
It teaches you to know how to manage your time well, and discipline also, because without discipline, distance learning is really, really a challenge.
And I got to ask you this, did the recent strikes in the education sector affect your study in any way?
Not really, but seeing the way things are now, I appreciate that I undertook the online or distance learning, because in case there's a strike here, I'm not affected. Even if the university where I am at is on strike, I'm not affected because I get books from another university. They send them directly to me, to my mailbox or to my inbox. So, and during exam time, they have their own invigilator. You only need a venue. So far, I think it did not influence me, but it's a good thing. If you can be able to do it, I think you're not affected by things like strikes.
Well, many thanks indeed, Beatrice Obocha, for that. Now, we have to take a small break, but when we come back, Chris Wamalwa will be here with exciting news from the United States.
Watch the Diaspora Voice every Friday from 7:30 p.m. on www.ktnkenya.tv.
Welcome back. If you are joining us, this is the KTN Diaspora Voice program, and I'm your host, Sadiq Shaban. We are now on to the second segment of this weekly show, where Chris Wamalwa is hosting Kenya's ambassador to the United States, Elkanah Odembo, and he also reports on President Mwai Kibaki's visit to the United States this week. Over to you, Chris.
The chance to engage with our president, your president, on the concerns of your education.
President Mwai Kibaki has urged Kenyans living abroad to come back home and join the rest of their compatriots in developing the country.
I am pleased to be here once more and to speak to you. I would like to assure you we are moving well and we are continuing to do well. And what we would like, those of you that have completed your studies or at least reached somewhere, do come home and work.
Speaking to a large number of Kenyans living in the U.S. in New York City on Wednesday, during a dinner party held in his honor, the president said opportunities now exist for the diaspora to put the talent and expertise they have acquired while away to good use.
The changes are happening in the country, but you should be there. You should ought to become. I'm just mentioning these things so that you can be interested, and please come. That's what I want.
The president, who is in New York to attend the annual United Nations Heads of State Summit, said the recent developments in the country, among them the discovery of oil, has opened up investment opportunities for everyone, including Kenyans living abroad.
Best thing has just happened to us. During this period, we have discovered we have some access to some petrol. You know, we didn't think of it. When we were planning on how to go about doing these things, we did not think of petrol. We thought we would have to continue to import, and we would get on, but you know, it was very worrying. But now we have petrol, we are thinking of how to develop it.
Speaking at the same function, Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi urged Kenyans both at home and abroad to exercise caution in choosing President Kibaki's successor in order to safeguard the president's achievements.
Let us also prepare very carefully as we move ahead to think and reflect on the leadership after the president very carefully. Reflect very carefully. You have 4 months or 5 months to go. Remember, we are transiting not just from the leadership of the president, who has to retire because the Constitution says so, but let us also remember we are going to have the first elections under a new Constitution.
Speaker after speaker extolled President Kibaki's wise leadership, saying the policies he has put in place in the last 10 years have put the country firmly on the path of development. Today we are talking to the Kenyan ambassador to the U.S., Mr. Elkanah Odembo, who honored us with his visit to the first state, Delaware. We are recording this show at the Tri-State Mall at the Simba Grill. Ambassador, karibu.
Asante sana. The honor is mine. The honor is mine, Chris.
Let's come back to the Diaspora Conference.
Right.
But I attended the first conference that was held last year.
Yes.
It was a fantastic meeting. I've never had a meeting like that.
Yes.
I'm told that you're organizing the second annual conference.
Yes.
Give us a brief on the conference.
Thank you, Chris. We, as you said, had a conference last October. It went extremely well. It was very well attended. The conversations were very good. We even made some commitments in terms of way forward and action points, things that we wanted to follow up, including, for example, the diaspora policy, which I'm very proud of the Kenyan diaspora here in the US, the input that they were able to make in the diaspora policy that is being developed by the country. That particular policy is going to be brought back to us at this second conference. And it's as a result of the input that we got and the feedback that we got from last year's conference. In fact, it was the conference that resolved that we do this on an annual basis. So our responsibility as an embassy was then to start thinking and planning how to go about it. So the wheels are rolling. It's the 5th to the 7th of October, which is just a few days away. All preparations are underway. The venue is all set. I visited it myself. Kenyans are registering. We'd urge them to register even more urgently because we want to make sure that, unlike last year, when Kenyans descended on us the day we closed registration, we want to urge Kenyans to register as early as possible. There's not much more time left. I believe we are going to have a wonderful conference this year. We have wonderful speakers who have already committed themselves to participate here. So some things will be followed up from last year, but there will be a whole range of new things, given that we are 6 months away from the elections, the historic elections of next year. A lot of Kenyans want to talk about things related to the elections. A lot of Kenyans also want to get a sense of how things are going in the country, what has happened in the last 2 years, what has happened in the last 1 year since the conference. So we want to give Kenyans a chance to converse around those issues, to recommit themselves, rededicate themselves to Kenya, and also just to think through how collectively, again as a diaspora, ways by which we can enhance the impact of the diaspora in Kenya's development. That really is my agenda and my interest in organizing with the diaspora these conferences, because my sincere belief is that this diaspora here in America has a tremendous potential. I don't think we have even started scratching the surface of it. People keep talking about the remittances, $1 billion every year. I think that's compared to what this diaspora is capable of doing. Chris, if you look at the numbers, and you work with sort of minimum wage types of numbers and the numbers of Kenyans that are in America, my estimates are that the kind of income that Kenyans in America earn in a year are to the tune of about $5 billion US. Kenya's national budget for this year is about 14 billion. So that tells you just how serious this diaspora is, and therefore the potential that it has. And that's just, we are talking about income, not to mention the levels of education, the expertise, the technical research, knowledge, expertise that exists within this diaspora, experiences that exist, which if harnessed can just do incredible things in Kenya. So that really is what we need to work towards. Get the diaspora here to share in the vision. We have a wonderful vision, Vision 2030, now just 18 years down the road. We want Kenya to become middle income and a globally competitive economy. The diaspora has a very important role that they can play, that I believe they must play to realize this vision. So they need to internalize this vision as well, but they must come together at some point and ask those questions about themselves. Where is Kenya today? Where do we want to see Kenya go? And what is our role in that process of getting Kenya to become a middle income and a globally competitive economy?
You released the expenditure budget for last year's conference.
Yes.
Which is commendable. You know,
yes.
We rarely have our leaders are not prone to putting the releasing such kind of so I personally commend you on
Thank you
for being transparent.
Thank you.
Of course, know that people are raising issues about the budget, but the question is why did you find it necessary to put it out there?
Two reasons. First of all, that statement should have gone out immediately after the conference. We send out a report of the conference, and when you organize a conference such as the one that we had last year, it is only natural, it is expected in good practice, benchmarking, conferencing, that you report on what transpired, what kind of resolutions and recommendations are made, but you also give people an indication of what income you had and how you expended that money. So that should have happened. So there were things that made that not happen, and I take responsibility for that at the embassy. My intention had always been that we be able to do that. But there were people who kept asking for it, and I said, even if it's the 12th hour, before we go into the next conference, the conference of next month, we don't want that carried over. And it's a very simple thing. We had sources of income, a number of sources of income. We had expenditures. So that was a very summarized statement. I hear people have raised issues about the $100,000 that we paid to the Marriott Wardman, which is with the venue of the conference. And I'm just very happy that Kenyans are that thorough and that vigilant to be able to read an income and expenditure statement and say, break this down for us a little bit, the 100,000. And I called, even on my way to Philadelphia this morning, I called the accountant and said, please break down the $100,000 because it's a large figure, it's the bulk of the expenditure from last year's conference. It doesn't look good to just say 110,000 Marriott Wardmen. So break it down. But I can break it down. It's a very simple arithmetic. We had about 600 people who participated at the conference last year. We paid over about $100,000 to the Marriott Hotel. What did we pay the Marriott Hotel for? The 600 people had 3 teas. Tea in the morning on Saturday, tea in the afternoon on Saturday, and tea in the morning on Sunday. The 600 people ate a lunch on Saturday, ate a dinner on Saturday evening, ate a lunch on the Sunday before the party. Per person, roughly about $180 per person. 3 teas at the average of about 25, 30 shillings per tea. It's a 4-star hotel, the Marriott, and we decided to take Kenyans to a good place. We had a committee of diasporans who said, yeah, let's do it in a good place. This is going to be a good conference. It needs to be done in a good place, a first-class place where we do a first-class conference. So if you do the arithmetic, 600 people times about 180, and we can break down the 180 further, break it down into $25 per person for the tea and the snacks that people drank, the 3 teas, the lunches at the average of about $35 for each of the 2 lunches and the dinner. We also had a reception on the Saturday night. It adds up to $180, $190. Multiply that by 600 and you get more than $100,000. So it's very simple. And that's the breakdown that the accountant is supposed to provide. So that should be projecting somewhere today so that people know that, in fact, there was even a deficit of about 20,000, which the Treasury still expects me to account for because I spent money that wasn't in my budget. And I need to say to the Treasury where that money went. But I simply borrowed from different line items from the budget that I had because the conference was going to happen. This year, again, people have heard people complaining, oh, how come we spent 70 last year, this year we are spending 200. Well, last year it was very heavily subsidized. So this year we will have a smaller number of people participating, but I think it will be a serious group of people, very committed, very serious people who will come to the conference this year. I suspect the conversations are going to be of a very high quality, so I'm not worried about the numbers. I don't expect us to bring in another 600 people. I know $200 for registration. For some people it is difficult, but in the scheme of things, anywhere in Washington, D.C., if you attend a conference, you spend at least $300 to register per day. So we are talking about $200 for a conference that starts on a Friday evening and ends on a Sunday. So all in all, and that money that we are charging is all going to go to the Doubletree Hilton. I was there just on Friday, on Tuesday with the managers going through the arithmetic. We worked out again the figures. How much are you going to charge us for the teas? How much are you going to charge us for the lunches? How much are you going to charge us for the dinner? How much are you going to charge us for the reception? So the arithmetic works out. It's roughly about $200 per person for the meals that they will eat over the 3 days.
I think one of the issues I've come to realize is, and looking at listening to Kenyans living here.
Yes.
It's the issue of one. The issue of conference is very new, by the way.
Yes,
I can tell you.
Yes.
I've been here for 10 years.
Yes.
And that was the first, most elaborate and constructive conference I've ever attended. And I attend very many as a journalist.
That's right.
But something that disturbs me and emerging out of all this is, which is really good in a way and bad in a way, in the sense that you set the pace in terms of being transparent, putting stuff there, and people are commenting about them. I'm happy that Kenyans are taking keen.
They're being very vigilant and they're monitoring very closely. It's their tax money, after all.
Yeah,
a lot of it is. Yeah.
But in terms of this, moving forward,
excuse me,
the Kenyan diaspora, as you understand, especially in the US, is very divided. It's very. We have a group of people who are very pessimistic about the country, Kenya generally. Why do you think that's the case?
There are people who are very cynical, very pessimistic. You can't blame them. We've had a situation where, for many years, the government just wasn't delivering. There was just not good governance. There was not very good accountability. There was not very good transparency. There was a very high level of corruption. So if Kenyans are pessimistic, if Kenyans are cynical, we have to cut them some slack. They're justified in that. But at some point, we also need to take stock of, I've myself been somebody, as you know, in civil society who was very critical of government. And I'm not being less critical of the government now because I'm in the government, but because, honestly, in the last 2 years, things have happened. In the last 10 years, things have happened in Kenya. With the promulgation of the Constitution, we are seeing major transitions taking place in that country. We are seeing the massive investments in infrastructure that are taking place, whether it's roads, transport, communication, whether it's energy. Things are happening. We are seeing issues of corruption beginning to be dealt with. We just had a former permanent secretary and a former managing director of a big parastatal being imprisoned. That tells you something. We have a judiciary, and again, the judiciary and the reforms that are taking place there. The Chief Justice, Willie Mutunga, was in Washington last week. It is incredible, the transformation that is taking place in the judiciary. That is the one arm of government that we all need to pray for, because if the judiciary is working effectively, it has an impact on all the other parts of government. If we have an executive arm of government that isn't functioning, that isn't delivering the transformation, the transition to this new society that we are aspiring towards with the new constitution, if we have a legislature that wants to dilute the bills that go to them because of their short-term interests, like most politicians will do, you have a judiciary that we can count on. I was home last month, and even in the village, to hear Kenyans talk about, but we know we now have courts that we can rely on. That's a very significant thing. So I am hopeful. There are great things that are happening. There are many things that are taking place at the same time. So this is an opportunity for Kenyans to just pull it all together. Let's get to the elections. Let's make sure that those elections are free, fair, credible elections, and most importantly, they are peaceful elections, because once that happens, then the sky is the limit for Kenya, really. So, to the diaspora, my message is join in, be vigilant, of course, make sure that this very progressive constitution, this wonderful constitution that has the capability, that has the potential for transforming Kenya in a way that many people haven't internalized yet. The constitution that Kenya has is, in every sense of the word, very revolutionary. If we implement it, and we are on the road to it, 40 pieces of legislation have been enacted to enable us to operationalize this constitution. If we see it through, Kenya is going to be a completely new society in another 3-4 years. And that's what we should all then pull towards. Yes, we must continue to be vigilant. We must continue to question the authority, the government, whether it is the government in Nairobi or the government in DC. Let's get the questions. But let's get the questions with the intention of wanting to be a part of the solution. Not just because you get the sense sometimes that the people who are just determined to be an obstacle and to trash everything that happens, everything government is corrupt, everything government is wrong, everything government is you can't trust. We can't build a nation with that kind of attitude and that kind of mindset. So my appeal to Kenyans here, you are significant, you are so important, come, join in, make the difference, provide some leadership from here. If things are going wrong, you remember at the Diaspora Conference last year, Professor Ali Mazrui, addressing the conference last year, said to Kenyans, form yourselves into a Kenyan tribe that is called the Diaspora Tribe. Forget the little tribes that you have. Think of yourselves as the Diaspora Tribe. And then think of the transformation that Kenya is going through at the moment as a renaissance. And put yourselves in a position where you are leading that renaissance. With dual citizenship now, with the right to vote, Kenyans everywhere around the world have no excuse anymore. You cannot continue to point fingers at the government and say they are not doing this, they're not doing that, they're doing this. Take charge, be a part of the solution, and play your role. I've made a special offer to those students, particularly within the vicinities of Washington, D.C., those who are registered students, full-time registered student, enrolled in school, who can prove that they're full-time registered student, that the first 20 to register, we will waive their registration fees.
So here, students. Yes. The ambassador has waived some fees. So please,
for the first 20 who will register,
get onto the computer and register. You can register online. It's open, and we are going to be recording the show live from the venue at the conference. If you have something to speak, if you have a voice that you would like to share with Kenyans, please be there. So that's it from me, Chris Omala, the host for Diaspora Voice. See you in the next episode.
Chris Omala, many thanks indeed for that insightful interview. We are looking forward to more coming from you in Delaware in the United States from next week. Now, the diaspora's participation in the next general election has been a topic of heated discussion both here and abroad. One of the bones of contention is the electoral debate that has been the registration of voters using the electoral kits, normally known as the BVR. Now, here is a wrap of the voter registration debate.
We are warning IEBC. Listen to me, Isaac Hassan and Oswago. Listen to me very keenly. Kenya went to war because another team like you interfered with the integrity of the popular will of the people of Kenya in 2007.
We need transparency not only on procurement of the hardware and the software that they have, but also of the advertising that they're making.
We simply ask for patience, understanding, and support from all of you. We know where we have come from, and we will not allow anyone or anything to take us there.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, which is under fire over its procurement procedures, is now on overdrive to salvage its image. With public attention turning to the electoral body, experts say the IEBC has to seal the cracks that are forming in its logistical processes.
The one and the most important thing the IEBC can learn from the 2007 election, particularly with regard to the defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, is the fact that it lost its credibility.
It's not just the credibility that Kenyans seem to be unsettled about. The IEBC's race to beat its electoral timelines is also a cause of concern to many.
We are racing against time, it's true, but we are not yet at a point where we will say it's going to affect the election process.
Observers, however, say that IEBC should be careful not to let their logistical woes affect the election date.
This commission, IEBC, want to ensure that Kenyans have confidence in the electoral process. And that's why we have taken a lot of pains to even invite external observers who are expert in ICT to take part in our process.
Let's now head to Durham, Northern Carolina, where we speak to Nathan Wangusi, a PhD student studying at the Duke University. Nathan Wangusi, many thanks indeed for joining us on this show. Now, do you think Kenyans are prepared for diaspora voting in the next general elections?
Now, Kenyans in the diaspora are really excited about the opportunity that they have this time around to participate in the general election. It's a historic election. It's the first time they're doing it. So there's a growing sense of excitement. But unfortunately, that has also meant that there's also a growing sense of impatience with the IEBC in terms of the measures they've put in place to facilitate voting. So I know of one case where lobby organizations have put together a class action lawsuit on behalf of the diaspora.
Nathan, what do Kenyans in the diaspora perhaps feel about being involved in vying and voting in the forthcoming general elections?
Now, for those who are going to be vying for positions in the county level and in the presidential elections from the diaspora, I do know a couple of people, and I think while it's noble, they should be careful to ensure that they meet all the requirements of the IEBC to be successfully participating as candidates.
And what are some of the logistical challenges do you think the IEB will have to deal with in facilitating the diaspora voting?
Now, given that they're only participating in the presidential elections, I expect that there'll be very, very few challenges. I think the only challenge is to make sure that the tallying is synchronized across the different time zones. Other than that, I expect a very successful participation of the diaspora in the election process.
Well, Nathan, I understand you're involved in the Obama campaigns. Any interesting lessons that Kenya can learn from the current United States politics?
I got involved in the Obama campaign as a volunteer in 2008 and as an organizer in the field in 2011. And what I've learned about this system is that there's not much difference in terms of the amount of contention there are on issues, the differences people have in ethnicity, or that there are electoral disputes at the end of the election. It's the methods by which they use to resolve those disputes and those differences. Now, as a people, we should learn how to accept the outcomes of our elections, and if there are any problems, not to use violence or intimidation as a means of resolving our disputes, but to use peaceful means. Under the new constitution, we have democratic tools at our disposal, and we should use them. Here's the thing about elections. They're not just a chance for us to elect our leaders, but a chance for us to decide who we are as a people and to choose a destiny for our country.
And finally, Nathan, do you think then dual citizenship will help in tackling rampant cases of Kenya illegal immigrants in other nations?
Dual citizenship does very little to solve the plight of Kenyans living illegally in other countries. However, what it does is that it gives a strong sense of identity with Kenya, which gives us an incentive to invest more in Kenya and gives the benefits of citizenship such as voting, owning land and owning property.
Nathan Wangusi, many thanks indeed for that insight. Well, we're looking forward to hearing from you wherever you are living in the world, whether in Asia, the Middle East, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, or other parts of Africa. You can get in touch with us by sending us an email and tell us what you think about this program and what issues are making headlines in your region. You can leave your comments on this clip or get in touch with us via Twitter at Diaspora Voice. Thank you so much for watching this edition of the program. For the team, I'm Sadiq Shaban. We meet again next week.
Watch the Diaspora Voice every Friday from 7:30 p.m. on www.ktnkenya.tv.